chosen one, there may already be a face in your mind, someone you have wondered about more times than you admit, someone whose name appeared at strange moments, someone whose presence created a feeling so strong that part of you began asking whether God was trying to tell you something. But before you turn that feeling into an answer, hear this carefully. Intensity is not the same thing as alignment. A person can occupy your thoughts without belonging in your future. A coincidence can get your attention without becoming an instruction. A connection can awaken something profound in you and still not be the relationship you are meant to build your life around. This is where many chosen ones become trapped. They keep asking God for another sign while ignoring what the relationship itself is already producing: clarity or confusion, truth or guessing, growth or self-abandonment, peace or constant emotional surveillance. The signs become louder, but the facts become harder to face. Maybe you have checked your phone and felt your stomach tighten. Maybe you have replayed one message until every word seemed loaded with meaning. Maybe you have noticed their initials, a song, a number, or a place that brought them back into your mind. Those moments can feel powerful. They become dangerous when you need them to mean only one thing. So I am not going to invent a first name and call it revelation. I am going to give you something more useful. There is a name for the kind of person who can stand beside the version of you that God is forming now. There are 3 clear tests for recognizing that person. And the third reaches deeper than love, because it reveals something about your own mind while you are trying to discern. When we reach that third test, you will understand why some people can pray for clarity for months and remain trapped inside the same answer. You may also see why the right connection feels different from the emotional pattern you learned to call destiny. For now, notice who came to mind when this began. Do not judge the answer. Hold that face lightly. Then ask yourself one question. Does this connection make me more truthful, or does it make me more afraid to lose what has never been given clearly? That question matters. Healthy love does not require you to become a detective. It does not ask you to decode silence for hours. It does not make you shrink your needs so another person can remain comfortable. It may challenge you, but it should not require you to abandon reality in order to preserve hope. If this is touching something real in you, make one declaration with me. Clarity over confusion. Let that become the standard. Not because every relationship must be easy, but because confusion should never become the permanent language of something you are calling sacred. Before I give you the name you came for, we have to remove the first false signal. It is the one most people mistake for undeniable chemistry. It feels powerful. It feels personal. But if you do not understand what it is doing inside you, it can make the wrong person feel impossible to release. The first false signal is emotional intensity. You feel the rush, the pull, the sudden fear of losing them, and something inside you whispers that a feeling this strong must mean something sacred. But strength of feeling is not proof of direction. Think about what happens when the connection becomes uncertain. One warm message can lift your entire day. One cold reply can drop you into doubt. You start waiting for contact. You feel relief when they return, then anxiety when they disappear again. The cycle begins to feel important simply because your body cannot ignore it. You may call that chemistry. You may call it a spiritual bond. But uncertainty can make attention stronger. When a person becomes unpredictable, your mind can begin watching them more closely, searching for clues, trying to restore the feeling of safety that disappeared. A racing heart can tell you that something matters to you, but it cannot tell you whether the relationship is healthy, mutual, or meant to continue. Here is the first test. I call it the peace over pulse test. After you interact with this person, do you become clearer or more confused? Do you feel more able to be yourself or more tempted to perform for their approval? Are you observing their character or only measuring how strongly they affect your emotions? Sit with those questions for a moment. A healthy connection can still create excitement. It can still challenge old fears. But underneath the emotion, there should be room for truth. You should not need constant uncertainty to keep the connection alive. The nervous system can call uncertainty important before wisdom calls it good. That is why intensity alone is such a poor compass. There is another layer to this, and I want you to hold it until later. Researchers have spent years studying what happens when the human mind is overloaded, divided, and unable to settle into clear processing. Their work raises a question that matters deeply for anyone trying to discern a relationship. What if you do not need another sign first? What if you need a clearer receiver? I will come back to that question, because it connects to something most spiritually sensitive people are rarely taught to examine. For now, do not chase the answer. Just notice what happens in you when the person appears, disappears, speaks warmly, or becomes distant. Your reaction is information, but it is not a verdict. This is where your first breakthrough begins. You are allowed to feel deeply without treating every feeling as instruction. You are allowed to care about someone without making them the center of your spiritual interpretation. You are allowed to step back long enough to see whether peace remains when the emotional surge settles. And when the surge does settle, ask again, am I clearer or more confused? Am I more truthful or more afraid? Am I becoming more grounded, or am I constantly negotiating against what I already know? If your answer is difficult, do not condemn yourself. Just name what is true. That honesty is already a form of freedom. Because the next false signal is even more seductive. It can appear in songs, dreams, numbers, names, and strange coincidences. And if you do not understand its proper place, it can make almost any connection look divinely confirmed. The second false signal is not always false. That is what makes it powerful. A song can arrive at the exact moment you were thinking about someone. Their name can appear twice in one morning. A dream can feel unusually vivid. A number can repeat until it seems impossible to ignore. I am not asking you to mock them or dismiss every spiritual experience, but a sign can only invite your attention. It cannot perform a character assessment for you. This is where many people reverse the order. They see a coincidence, then use it to excuse what the relationship keeps showing them. The person disappears, but the sign felt powerful. They avoid accountability, but the dream felt sacred. They cross a boundary, but their initials appeared again. Slowly, interpretation begins, overruling reality. That is why the second test is simple. Character before signs. Ask what this person repeatedly does when there is nothing dramatic happening. Do they tell the truth when truth costs them something? Do they respect your boundaries when those boundaries inconvenience them? Do they repair conflict, or do they punish you with distance? A person does not become safe because a coincidence was beautiful. A person becomes trustworthy through patterns that can survive ordinary days, difficult conversations, disappointment, and time. A sign can appear in 1 second. Character is revealed across time. This does not require you to become cynical. It asks you to become discerning. You can honor a meaningful moment without forcing it to carry a conclusion it was never designed to prove. Maybe you are thinking that your connection is different. Then do not dismiss the signs. Simply place them in the correct position. Let them make you curious. Do not let them make the decision for you. Here is a practical way to test that. Remove every sign for 1 minute. Forget the dream. Forget the song. Forget the repeated number. Forget the coincidence that made your heart stop. Now look only at the relationship as it actually exists. Is there mutual effort? Is there honesty? Is there respect? Is there emotional responsibility? Can both people speak clearly without using silence, ambiguity, or spiritual language to avoid the truth? If the facts remain strong, the signs do not need to carry the relationship. If the facts collapse without the signs, that is information you should not ignore. Wisdom can coexist with wonder. Spiritual sensitivity becomes stronger when it does not have to protect a preferred answer from reality. If this is the standard you want to keep, say it clearly. Character before signs. Let that sentence interrupt the old habit of collecting confirmation while avoiding evidence. Let it bring you back to what can actually be observed, tested, and lived. And there is one more reason this matters. Even character can become difficult to see when you are terrified of losing the connection. Fear can make you explain away behavior you would recognize immediately in another relationship. That is where we go next. Because the third trap is not about what you see in them, it is about what you begin doing to yourself in order to keep them. Chosen one, this is where the question becomes more personal. You can recognize inconsistency in someone else and still keep making excuses when your own heart is involved. You can see the pattern clearly, then silence yourself, because losing the connection feels more frightening than losing your peace. That is the third trap, self-abandonment. It does not always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks like deleting a message because you are afraid honesty will push them away. Sometimes it looks like accepting uncertainty for months because asking for clarity feels too risky. Sometimes it looks like calling pain patience. You tell yourself they are healing. You tell yourself they are busy. You tell yourself God is teaching you endurance. Compassion may explain what someone is going through, but compassion does not require you to surrender every boundary in order to prove that you understand. Here is the deeper question. What are you doing to yourself to keep this connection alive? Maybe you stopped asking direct questions. Maybe you began pretending that less is enough. Maybe you keep translating their silence into a story that hurts less than the facts. Maybe you are carrying the emotional work for both people, then calling that loyalty. Pain can exist inside real love. Conflict can exist inside real love. Waiting can sometimes be necessary. But self-erasure is not proof of devotion. If a relationship only survives when you become smaller, quieter, easier to ignore, something important is being revealed. I want to give you 5 questions. Do not answer them quickly. First, what truth am I afraid to say? Second, what boundary have I abandoned? Third, what behavior am I constantly explaining away? Fourth, who do I become while waiting for this person? Fifth, if there were no signs at all, what would the facts tell me? Those questions are not designed to force a breakup. They are designed to restore honesty. Truth does not always tell you to leave. Sometimes it tells you to communicate. Sometimes it tells you to slow down. Sometimes it tells you to stop making a temporary connection responsible for your entire future. And if part of you immediately says, "But they have been through so much," hear this gently. Their pain matters. Their history matters. Their wounds may deserve compassion. But understanding why someone behaves a certain way does not mean you must keep giving that behavior unlimited access to your life. Compassion can explain behavior. It does not obligate access. This is where many chosen ones confuse sacrifice with sacredness. They believe that if they suffer long enough, the relationship will finally reveal why it was so hard. But suffering is not a receipt that guarantees destiny. Sometimes, suffering is simply the moment truth becomes impossible to ignore. Say this clearly if you need it. I choose truth. Not the truth that punishes, not the truth that humiliates, the truth that allows love and dignity to stand in the same room. Because the person meant to walk beside a healthier version of you cannot require the wounded version of you to return just to keep them comfortable. The next part matters for that reason. You came here wanting a name. Now that the false signals are visible, we can finally name the kind of person this message has been pointing toward. You came here wanting a name. Maybe part of you hoped for a familiar one. Maybe you wondered whether I would say the name already, living quietly inside your thoughts. I will not do that. because no honest guide should invent certainty and call it revelation. But there is a name for the kind of person you are learning to recognize. I call them the peace bearer, not because they never challenge you, not because every conversation feels easy, not because healthy love is free from conflict. The peace bearer is the person whose presence does not require you to abandon truth in order to preserve the connection. That person can still awaken desire. They can still make your heart race. They can still bring old fears to the surface. But underneath the emotion, there is room to breathe. There is room to ask. There is room to disagree. There is room to remain yourself. With the peace bearer, attraction and responsibility can exist together. Desire and dignity can exist together. Spiritual depth does not replace ordinary honesty. Affection does not require permanent ambiguity. Conflict does not become a weapon used to make you beg for reassurance. Imagine how different that feels. You no longer check your phone with your stomach tightened. You no longer replay one sentence for hours because direct communication has disappeared. You do not need to search for a sign every time the relationship becomes unclear, because the relationship itself contains evidence you can actually live with. This does not mean the right person will make you calm every second. Your own fears may still rise. Old wounds may still speak. But the connection gives those fears somewhere honest to go. You can name them without being punished for having them. That is why peace is not the same as boredom. Peace is not emotional numbness. Peace is what remains when excitement no longer has to carry the entire relationship. It lets affection become something you can inhabit, not something you must constantly decode. So think again about the face that came to mind at the beginning. Do not ask yet, is this my person? Ask something more useful. Does this person live like a peace bearer? Do their actions create space for truth, dignity, repair, and mutual responsibility? You have the name now, but the name is not the deepest revelation. There is still a problem. You can understand every standard I have given you and still feel unable to make a clear decision about one specific person. You can know what healthy love looks like and still freeze when your own attachment is involved. Why? Earlier, I asked you to hold one question. What if you do not need another sign first? What if you need a clearer receiver? We can finally return to that. Because discernment does not happen in a vacuum. It happens through a mind that can be tired, overloaded, fearful, and locked onto one desired outcome. When that happens, even good principles can become difficult to apply. The next part is where the entire message turns inward. Why does knowing all of this still not produce movement? Why does insight remain insight while your decision stays frozen? The answer may not be that God is refusing to speak. It may be that you are trying to listen through too much noise. There are moments when the problem is not a lack of information. You already know the facts. You already know what consistency looks like. You already know which boundaries have been crossed. Yet your mind keeps circling the same person, hoping one more thought will finally create certainty. That is what I call the clear receiver principle. Clarity does not manufacture God's answer. It gives you a cleaner place from which to test your own. When the mind is overloaded, rumination can narrow attention. Fear can make one outcome feel like the only acceptable outcome. Emotional activation can make every detail seem more important. Discernment still happens through a human mind. Many people interpret this struggle as weak faith. They assume more prayer, more trust, or one more confirmation will remove confusion. But sometimes more effort only adds noise. The shift is simple. Stop asking a flooded mind to produce sacred certainty on command. Give yourself enough internal space to see what remains when urgency settles. The facts do not need panic. Character does not need obsession. Truth can survive a quieter room. This is why the condition of the receiver matters. A tired mind may overlook what a rested mind notices. A fearful mind may defend what a calmer mind can examine. A mind attached to one answer may turn every coincidence into supporting evidence. So, let us make the whole message plain. Why have you been stuck? Not because you are foolish. Not because every feeling is wrong. You have been trying to separate attachment from alignment, while standing inside the very emotion you are attempting to judge. What should you do with that? Return to observable reality. Look at character. Look at reciprocity. Look at boundaries. Look at how conflict is repaired. Look at whether peace returns when the emotional spike passes. And who are you becoming through this process? Not someone who loves less. Someone who can love without surrendering discernment. Someone who can remain open without becoming dependent on confusion. Someone who can feel deeply and still tell the truth. You have spent years asking for a louder answer. Perhaps what you need now is a quieter mind. That brings me back to the question I asked you to hold earlier. There is research around how the brain processes information across its different systems, and there are tools designed around the idea of supporting clearer mental functioning. One of those tools is what I want to explain next, but only in its proper place. It is not a device that tells you who to love. It cannot identify a soulmate. It cannot replace prayer, wisdom, time, character, or honest conversation. If any tool claimed that, you should question it. Its relevance here is narrower. If mental fog, cognitive overload, or constant rumination is part of what keeps you from applying what you already know, then supporting clarity may be worth examining. According to the team behind this tool, their approach is built around whole brain activation and hemisphere synchronization. It is designed around supporting more integrated mental processing. Before I tell you what the tool is called, remember this standard. A resource can support clarity. It cannot create truth for you. It can support the receiver. It cannot decide what God is saying. That distinction matters, because the moment you confuse a tool with authority, you create another form of dependence. The goal here is the opposite. More clarity, more responsibility, more honesty. You now know what has been blocking you. The mechanism is clearer. The door is visible. The only question left is this. Now that you know, what do you do with it? Chosen one, we have reached the place where clarity becomes practical. Earlier, I asked you to hold one question. What if you do not need another sign first? What if you need a clearer receiver? There is a piece of research the team behind this resource points to when explaining that idea. Dr. Roger Sperry received the Nobel Prize in 1981 for work involving the specialized functions of the two hemispheres of the brain. The team uses that foundation to describe a broader goal, helping the brain operate in a more integrated state. According to their materials, modern life can leave people mentally scattered, overloaded, and chronically foggy. A woman from California described living in that kind of fog. She had tried prayer, journaling, meditation, and many practices meant to help her feel centered. She still felt as if life was happening to her rather than through her. After using the resource consistently, she said something felt clearer, almost as if an internal channel had opened again. A man from Texas described a different version of the same problem. He was carrying responsibility for work and family while feeling mentally dull and emotionally distant. He said the fog had become so normal that he had stopped noticing it as fog. After using the resource, he reported feeling sharper and more capable of making decisions with less mental friction. Those are individual reports, not guarantees. Your experience may be different. The tool is called the Genius Switch. According to the product team, it is an 8-minute targeted auditory sequence built around what they call neural sync technology. You use headphones, close your eyes, relax, and listen once a day. They position it as a whole brain activation tool designed around hemisphere synchronization. It is not a soulmate detector. It does not tell you who God wants you to marry. It does not replace prayer, wisdom, character, boundaries, or time. Its role is narrower. It is meant to support mental clarity, so the person making the decision is not fighting as much internal fog. This is not for everyone. It is for the chosen one who understands that spiritual discernment and mental clarity do not have to compete. You can honor faith and still care about the condition of the mind through which you are processing fear, hope, attachment, and evidence. According to the current offer page, colleagues once suggested the program could carry a value around $500. The listed price was $49. The current offer shown there is $39. The page also includes 4 bonuses and a money-back guarantee. The bonuses include a guided visualization, a grocery shopping guide, a classic manifestation book, and a printable habits infographic. The page also states that buyers receive lifetime digital access. If clarity is something you have been postponing it has a cost of its own. Not because God withdraws a promise, not because the right person disappears if you do not act today. The cost is that another week can pass while you keep making important decisions from the same exhausted mental state. One warning matters. If you decide to look at this resource, use the official page linked in the description and pinned comment. The product team says that is the verified source for the version they created. If your spirit resonates with what has been described, you can read the full details there before making any decision. A tool can support clarity. It cannot create truth for you. It cannot surrender for you. It cannot make another person honest, consistent, or ready. The deeper work still belongs to your choices, your boundaries, your prayer, and your willingness to see what is actually there. And for the chosen one who felt something stir when the mind was mentioned earlier, that path is still open in the description. Let it remain an option, not an authority. Now we return to the relationship itself. Because after all the signs, all the emotion, and all the noise, you still need a way to test what remains. The next step is where discernment becomes something you can actually practice. Chosen one, you have heard the principles. Now you need a process you can use when emotion gets loud. I call this the 24-hour discernment reset. It is not a trick. It is a short pause that helps you separate what happened from what you fear it means. For one day, if your circumstances allow it, stop chasing interpretation. Do not collect new signs. Do not reread the same message 10 times. Do not force a conclusion. Give the emotional wave enough space to settle. First, look at facts. Write down only what actually happened. What did they say? What did they do? What did you do? Remove the story around it. Remove the prediction. Remove the spiritual meaning for one moment. Second, look at fruit. What does this connection consistently produce in your life? More honesty? More steadiness? More courage? Or more obsession, self-doubt, and waiting without direction? Third, look at freedom. Can you tell the truth without fearing that one honest sentence will make the relationship disappear? Can you say no? Can you ask for clarity? Can you disagree without being punished by distance? Fourth, look at reciprocity. Are both people carrying the relationship, or are you doing the emotional work for two? Mutual love may not always look perfectly equal, but it should not require one person to create the entire connection alone. Fifth, look at peace, not excitement, not relief, because they finally replied, peace. When the emotional spike settles, what remains in your body and mind? Now I want you to picture 2 doors. Behind the first door is chemistry without clarity. You feel the rush, you feel the longing. You also feel yourself shrinking, waiting, decoding, and hoping the next moment will finally make everything certain. Behind the second door is attraction with truth. There is desire, but there is also honesty. There is connection, but there is also responsibility. There is room for boundaries, questions, repair, and peace. Place one hand over your chest if that feels natural. Take one slow breath. Then ask yourself one question. Which connection allows me to remain truthful? Do not rush the answer. The future version of you is not someone who never feels fear. It is someone who no longer lets fear choose for them. You can love deeply without becoming addicted to ambiguity. You can receive affection without needing chaos to prove that it matters. You can stop mistaking peace for boredom. You can stop mistaking distance for mystery. You can stop mistaking longing for evidence. That version of you can say no without believing you lost destiny. That version of you can hear a beautiful sign and still check the facts. That version of you can feel chemistry and still ask whether character is present. If this is the standard you are choosing, say it clearly. Peace is not boring. Peace is where truth becomes easier to hear. And if the person in your mind cannot meet you there, that does not mean the entire story was meaningless. Some connections awaken you, some reveal a wound, some teach you what you can no longer abandon in yourself. The final question is not whether you can force this person to become right for you. The final question is whether you are willing to remain who God is forming you to be, even when love asks you to wait, release, or choose differently. Chosen one. We can close every loop now. You came here asking who the person is. I cannot truthfully identify a legal name for you, and no honest guide should pretend otherwise. But you can identify the pattern. The name is the peace bearer. The person whose presence does not require you to abandon truth in order to preserve connection. You also asked whether signs matter. They can. A sign can invite attention. It cannot replace character. A coincidence can make you curious. It cannot make another person honest, consistent, responsible, or ready. And the final test was never only about them. It was about the condition of the receiver. You can know every principle of healthy love and still struggle to apply it when fear, attachment, and mental noise are running the conversation. So here is the plain truth. You do not need another coincidence to justify what reality keeps contradicting. You also do not need to distrust every meaningful connection. You need enough clarity to let signs invite attention while character decides trust. God, remove desperation from the places where love has made us afraid. Give us wisdom to see what is present without forcing it into the shape we want. Give us courage to release what requires self-betrayal. Give us patience when a story is unfinished. Give us openness to healthy love. Restore clarity where fear has become loud. Let peace and truth remain together, even when the answer is not immediate. Chosen one, make this your declaration. I do not confuse intensity with alignment. I do not abandon truth to preserve connection. I can love deeply and discern clearly. I choose character before signs. I choose peace without fear. If that is your decision, write, I choose clear love. Not as a spell, not as a guarantee. Let it be a reminder of the standard you are carrying forward. The right question is no longer, what is their name? The right question is, can I remain who God is forming me to be while I love them? If the answer is yes, keep watching the fruit. Keep watching the character. Keep watching what happens to truth when both hearts are under pressure. If the answer is no, do not call self-abandonment destiny. That is how you recognize the peace bearer. Not by the loudest sign, not by the strongest obsession, by the kind of love that allows truth, dignity, responsibility, and peace to remain in the same room.